Hello, and welcome to Sex, Love, and Soul. I'm Mary Knight, and I am so glad that you're here. Did you know that even in the sex work world, you have to draw moral lines for yourself? You have to have a code, you have to have ethics. Otherwise, you are rudderless in a very chaotic, rudderless occupation and world because you are basically on your own. You are running your own business, but it's against the law, it's underground, and you have to have your own boundaries and bit of scaffolding so that you don't just drift away and you start using drugs, start drinking, making even more bad decisions than you probably already made to get you to a point where you thought that sex work was your best option. No judgment here. I did it. I was in it for quite a while, and I retired 13 years ago. What I want to talk about today is a comment that I received some months ago on my YouTube channel from someone claiming to be an escort. And it said, I only see unmarried men. And my first reaction was, okay, that's a weird thing to be proud of, but fine. And then I thought, oh, does she think she's better than me? Does she think she's better than other women who are sex workers who see married men? It's like, come on, come on. And there's even a name for it. It's called the horarchy. It's a hierarchy for sex workers inside the sex work world. It's like, who's classier? Who's just doing it for the money? Who's not even doing real sex work? Who's out of her freaking mind? And on and on. It's women absorbing the judgment that's been aimed at them and then using it against each other and thinking of it as professionalism. When I first really noticed that was with this whole category of sex workers that act like what they're doing is so altruistic and that they are so special and they have this magical vagina and that they're healing the world with their magical vagina. I am never going to deny the healing powers of sex. Absolutely not. But these women have this idea that they were goddesses or reincarnated sacred prostitutes. They would let men come and see them and pay whatever they wanted. And they would say that it was a tribute or that it was a donation. I understand there are legal reasons for that, but they actually did not have a set fee. And I knew then what I know now, and that is that they didn't want to admit that they were just garden variety prostitutes. And it bothered me. And I think in part because I'm a spiritual person, I'm a spiritual lady. I understood that it is healing to connect with a man in this way, especially a man who felt neglected. But I wasn't willing to do that with strange men that I wasn't attracted to unless I was getting paid for it. And some of those women, we would definitely call them woke now because they didn't believe the whole money thing. They just thought money was dirty and that they didn't want to have anything to do with it. They felt like it made them somehow more moral and more elevated than the rest of us peon sex workers. At the top, you might have these super high-end, extra classy bitches that you would never see online. You would never know that these women were prostitutes. They are celebrities, they are supermodels, and they're the women that get paid, men and women, that get paid $100,000 to go on a yacht for the weekend. I think they call it yachting. And not that I was ever invited to do that, but to me, doing something like that would be terrifying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm trapped on this yacht for the weekend. But see, that's part of the horarchy. And then a woman like that would be like, oh my gosh, I would never put an ad online. I would never do that. I would just feel so cheap. And then there's women who are porn stars, like so many people like me, like an escort. I'm like, oh my God, I can never imagine doing that. Because then everybody would know all your business. And then porn stars that I've talked to are like, oh my God, I would never be an escort because you don't know who you're seeing. I know everybody that I'm performing with. You don't know kind of thing. Like it's just how we think about things. It's a personality thing. I was what was called an outcall escort. I was an international traveling companion. And some women were like, oh my God, I would never do that. I would be so scared to drive all over town. I'd be scared to fly with a man or go to another city and meet him there. And I would never do that. And so those women are usually like what you would call a spa girl, or they work at a Jack Shack. Or an in-call. Like, I used to have an in-call place, and we called it a modeling studio, but it was a straight up hoe house. So those women there were not comfortable with going on out calls. I would never want to work in a spa. I would never have done that because I would have felt it would have been so boring to me. So it's a personality thing. I never called myself a whore because it's crude. I just don't talk like that. I mean, I'm on here talking like that, but like in my daily life, the way that I refer to myself and other women, that isn't the way that I talk. But to keep myself in check while I was working, I never would let myself pretend that I was doing anything other than exactly what I was doing.
Not because I was so hard, but because I never wanted to get caught up and then get carried away by my sex worker persona and lose myself.
When I see a woman like the one who commented start creating all these little moral lines for herself, I only see unmarried men. What she's really doing is enacting that coping mechanism. It's just a coping mechanism. She doesn't want to admit that she's doing what she's doing. And the only reason I call this out at all is because it's not good for you to live those kinds of lies. You're already living so many lies as an escort that just that one, lying to yourself, that's where you really can get off the rails. Because if you can't count on yourself to tell yourself the truth, you're in a bad spot. You're in a very bad spot. One thing that I know now is that you get this wisdom and this clarity after you retire that you can't have while you're working. You just see things so much more clearly. And as I mentioned, I've been retired for over a decade. And while I was still working, it did start to bother me. The wives, the families, the kids. It did. And it happened more than once that a wife called me. It sucks. And I understand why someone would make that comment because it feels safer. And also because as an escort, denial is mandatory. You have to push all those feelings away. You have to deny a lot of your real feelings because if you let yourself feel upset or disgusted because you're having sex with someone that you're not really attracted to, your whole world will blow up. And I stayed in the business. I did a lot of things out of greed, out of laziness, out of making just bad financial choices over and over and over again. And I just felt very trapped when I allowed those feelings to come up. And back then, part of me knew what I was doing was wrong. But I told myself, I'm simply making myself available to men in a way that their wives aren't. And I believed this because it's true. And sex workers have been known to save marriages.
I had so many men tell me, now that I'm here with you, I can give my wife the kind of relationship that she wants to have with me and just take the pressure off of the whole situation and just have a peaceful existence at home.
Some of the obvious appeal to the married man is that he sees it as a no strings attached situation. The money is a boundary. He pays the money, he gets the access, and he ideally doesn't have to be emotionally involved. Sometimes that happens. As I talked about in other videos, it does happen on both sides. She gets emotionally involved, he gets emotionally involved. But the real emotional cost to everyone is that constant denial and the justification that you don't realize the extent of what you're doing until you're out of the business. Now I can be open and honest about those experiences in a way that I was never willing to admit at the time. For my own survival, I couldn't admit to myself how much what I was doing bothered me on many different levels. But greed is a hell of a drug. So toward the end, I did start to feel, all right, this is getting to be too much for me. I can't continue to do this. But I had painted myself in a financial corner. And because I couldn't make a clean decision, I couldn't see a way out, I just adjusted my business. I raised my rates, I increased my time minimums, and I made it financially and logistically difficult for any man with a family to see me. And this wasn't about morality. It was because at that time, I didn't like myself. And so the harder I made it for them, the more I was subconsciously fighting the job itself. I was like, I'll just make it so expensive. Nobody will want to see me and I'll be forced to quit, kind of thing. It's akin to, I hear men say this, I'm just sick of this crap. And so I picked a fight with her so that I could leave and feel justified in leaving instead of just sitting down and having a conversation and being real about how you're feeling, what you want. That way you just make it the other person's fault. So you don't have to take any of the real responsibility. So the woman who left that comment, she's not better than any other sex worker. She's just playing a game with herself, a game where you try to make moral rules inside of an amoral world. Like I said, you have to for survival. And this whole thing reminded me of a conversation that I had had with a woman I had become friendly with. She was an escort. She had spent a weekend skiing, and while she was on the ski trip, she met a man that she really liked. They'd had dinner, and she told him what she did, and he wasn't okay with that. So they parted ways. She was telling me about it because it happened to the best of us. And I said, I was just trying to lighten it up. I said, I guess he just couldn't see himself with a hooker. And I laughed. And she got super pissed off at me. She was really pissed. And she said, I don't identify as a hooker. And I said, okay, wait a minute. What are we doing here? Are we playing games here? Do you think you're different just because you charge more? And maybe it was rude of me, but I said, well, at the end of the day, we're all just sucking dick for money. And she hung up on me. Yeah, that was crude, but that in that moment, it kind of it pissed me off. I thought, who do you think you are? You're not better than any other woman doing this work. That's a lesson. If you need to make it prettier for yourself, fine. But if you can't own what you do in the most direct and even crude terms, it might be time to stop doing it. It's not about shame. It's about growing up and getting out from underneath those lies. Because if you can't look someone in the eye and name what you do without wincing, it's probably time for a shift. And this is true of anyone in any job. This is also true of men who are involved with sex workers. And I'm not here to dunk on anybody, run anyone down for the choices they're making, because Lord knows I have made some very terrible choices that didn't just affect me, but seriously affected the people that I love too. And that is one regret that I have about living that life, was as much as I wanted to think that I was doing the right thing for my family because I was able to financially support them and take care of myself for the first time as an adult. Um, I didn't understand that what I was doing was affecting other people. I know that just sounds insane, but that was where I was. That was my level of consciousness at that time. And fortunately, I was able to grow up. And it was through sex work that I did grow the fuck up. And it wasn't because bad things happened to me. It was because I actually had to realize that, oh, what I'm doing in this job is not about me. Of course, I had boundaries. I'm not saying that, but there's a serious lack of, I'm not going to use the word accountability because I feel like so many women who are sex workers, the ones that I know and have personal interaction with, they are accountable in many, many ways. And then not, of course, in others, because they're human. We can all say that about any profession. But anyhow, I just wanted to emphasize that I'm not criticizing people or trying to shame people. What is the key takeaway from this video? The key takeaway is pretty simple. If you're having to go through all these mental gymnastics, you're living out of alignment. So move on. Move on. Stop fighting yourself. We've got to dismantle these deep-seated lies, that keep you trapped. And that means understanding a lot of the invisible dynamics that you have built, your invisible scaffolding that you're using to prop up bullshit. It just so happens that I offer coaching to help you understand your bond with a sex worker. Do you want to continue on with that bond? Are you not getting what you want? Or are you getting what you want? How do you get more of what you want out of that situation? How do you leave those situations with a clear conscience? You can find links to what I have to offer in the show notes and in the pinned comment below this video. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I'm honored to be here. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, why not? Oh my God, it's fast, it's fun, it's easy, it's free. And you just might learn something. If you know somebody who could benefit from this message, share my video. It makes you look smart and cool, and you're helping someone. Okay, bye for now.